I would love to see him indicted. I would love to see the trial and all this sort of thing. That would make it, the best. But I don't see that's going to happen, because our government has a system that allows people to pay off debts. Now that sounds weird. Like, how is that related to being indicted for something? Prison is a business, just like the court system is a business. You can get them out of jail for that. You can literally pay off the bond, and the warden has to release them. There's no way around it. I don't know that you're going to have a remedy in the court system. I don't even know that you'll have a remedy in the world court.
The scientists at LivePet are hard at work solving our cancer epidemic. They have the most promising cancer trials going on now with pet clinics around the country that I have ever seen. You can see the promising cancer research and trials going on some of the past shows that I've done. The links are below. While working with C60 and other ingredients, these talented scientists developed a hair growth serum that really works. They sat on it for years. After all, cancer is their focus. But they now realize how much the profits from this product could really help their cancer research. So the C360 hair growth product was launched. C360 hair growth is specifically designed to revive your hair growth by targeting hair follicles and restarting your hair growth cycle. C60, the active ingredient in C360 hair growth, reactivates hair follicles that have stalled due to hereditary hair loss, physical conditions, or environmental factors that may affect follicle production. You will begin to see visible results using C360 hair growth within 3 to 6 weeks. Buy today knowing that your future hair growth will help fund very promising cancer research. See more at the link below. Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. This episode, I have Jay Singleton coming back, and he sent me an email saying, hey, I got this idea. I've been doing a ton of research on why these criminals like Hillary Clinton and others are not being indicted. And he's going to explain what the bond issue is with prisons and how it works and how people get themselves out of criminal indictments. And it seems to be legit. He's going to provide links, and with all this stuff that just seems so out there, it's hard to wrap our mind around some of these things. The only way that you can vet this for yourself is to go do your own research. I bring on people who provide information. So much of this information is just out there. It's so unethical. It's so weird. And the only way that you're going to be able to accept it yourself is to do the research. So I really, really encourage you to do that research on your own and come to your own conclusions. I'm learning too as we go. I'm not this oracle that's bringing things to you. There's just so much to learn and so much to change and to grow that all I can do is bring you information for you to learn on your own. And so that's what this is all about. And then he talks about issues with understanding how the structure works and how the government works and how he learned and how he was red-pilled on that. And it was in his face. And then some solutions on what he's doing to keep get himself away from it. We talk about the most important thing is to not let these criminals take you down. Make sure you're mentally healthy. Make sure your family's healthy, physically healthy. Make sure you're protected, your assets are protected. And then we can think about how to take these criminals down. But don't let them hurt you in the process. Don't let them hurt your health, hurt your mental health, because I know a lot of people are struggling with being able to accept this. And then he stays after for my Patreons and talks about offshore and what it really means and how to keep yourself safe there. It's really a good topic of discussion. For those of you who are working offshore or thinking about working offshore, it's good to hear some of the things that he talks about on how he helps people. So that's for my Patreons. But let's now get into my interview with Jay Singleton. Hi, John. Welcome back to the program.
Always a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you.
When you contacted me and you told me about why you think Hillary Clinton and a lot of these other criminals are never going to be indicted and they're completely off the hook, and you figured out, or you think you figured out a theory or facts on why they are, I was very intrigued, because everybody's trying to figure out why the heck aren't those guys going down? I mean, you know, you look at Hillary Clinton, she's committed treason. In Haiti, she's war crimes against humanity. You know, not just Haiti, I mean, place after place. You know, the treason, not just the fake FISA report that she paid for, you know, the Russian collusion, but also the nuclear, selling a third of our uranium. I mean, on and on. Treason, you know, in Benghazi that's coming out. And these guys are getting off the hook. So we're trying to figure out why the heck. And so when you sent me that, I'm like, okay, John, I got to hear this. So
well, it's not a theory. I mean, I've seen this over the years. Yeah, and I would love to see the perp walk. I would love to see him indicted. I would love to see the trial and all this sort of thing. That would make it, you know, the best. But I don't see that's going to happen because our government has a system that allows people to pay off debts. Now that sounds weird. Like, how is that related to being indicted for something? And as you know, I mean, you've probably done interviews where people were talking about the prison bonds, the prison system as the biggest moneymaker that we have, besides probably pharmaceuticals.
Explain that, because that makes sense, because prisoners are a constant cash flow. And whenever you have a constant cash flow, you can collateralize that and make money off of it. Can you explain? Yeah. And then they, just like you would off a car or a mortgage or anything else.
Exactly. Someone who's indicted, okay, a case file is issued. The case file becomes a universal identifier for securities. And his social security number and birth certificate are used in that class of securities, or many classes of securities. So someone who's indicted, even if the case is dismissed, or maybe he's convicted and serves time or goes on probation or something like, whatever happens, there's a system of bonds that's created, and the bonds are sold just like money. New money is created when someone's indicted and arrested and all this stuff. Now you can look up, there's a bond system. You can go look it up on the internet. I'll give you the names of the bonds. There's 3 types of bonds. There's a bid bond, a payment bond, and a performance bond. Now, there are other documents, but these are the core documents you want to look for. Now, these come out, I believe, the government printing office. These are official government forms.
So now, if they just search it, can they find those links to those bonds?
Yes, you can search on bid bond, payment bond, performance bond, and use the term PDF afterwards. You'll find the PDF version of those documents. In like 1 second, they're on the internet. So that just gets you started. I mean, these are official documents. They're used for all kinds of things. They're used for business, but prison is a business, just like the court system is a business.
So can you get somebody who murders somebody, you pay off this bond and they're free? I mean, how does that work?
You can get them out of jail for that. You can literally pay off the bond, and the warden has to release them. There's no way around it.
And nobody knows about this. It's a secret kind of, I mean, the
few people know where to look.
Okay.
Yeah, few people know. Where are you going to look? I mean, probably it's private records. It's some accounting record somewhere that the debt was paid off. So the debt on the bonds releases the prisoner. The prisoner is the collateral, so to speak. Not exactly, but it's the collateral.
Can there be rules where certain people can't get off because of the bond? I mean, because it's just too big of a deal? I mean, like where they are up for the death penalty or something like that?
I don't know about that, but I think that, okay, back to what I was saying about we'd love to see the perp walk. I think we have other remedies. So if someone, let's say someone could get, I don't know if there's exclusionary rules, but we can do a letter of marque and reprisal. We can actually assassinate somebody who's an enemy of the country.
Treason,
that can be done.
Right? That's what treason is.
Sure. I mean, for that you could have a military tribunal or a trial. It's a capital offense. But like I said, I mean, what's to stop a person like that from being assassinated? It sounds immoral and illegal, but it's done all the time. Wouldn't that be a remedy? I'm not saying let's do it.
But now that's why the military tribunals are so important, because it goes around this bond system.
No, I believe it's part of it. That's the problem. That's the problem. See, now that we have, our whole system is based on that. You can't be indicted without, I don't care if it's military or whatever, any judicial system, without this bond attachment.
Now,
otherwise it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
You have reason to believe that Hillary Clinton and her clan and other people have actually paid off their bonds.
They don't have any bonds because whoever's in charge of issuing indictments wouldn't do it, because the bonds would then be settled. Someone would settle the bonds
immediately.
Yes, and it's a little more sophisticated than we think. Like I used to do it. I've done this for actually consumer debt, where we would take a debt, a bill, a judgment, a mortgage, and we would endorse it a certain way and send it to the IRS, and the IRS would pay it. Now this didn't work, but maybe two or three out of 1,000 times, so I don't do it normally. But it's a little more sophisticated. So for congressmen, for example, the congressmen probably have a credit card that they can use. It has no money on it like you and I would have money on our card or a debit card. It's just a card that settles debts.
In keeping with my promise to provide the absolute best products I can find that I take personally and would give my family, I'm really excited to show you their advanced NMN, which has been proven to dramatically increase your energy and much more. As discussed in multiple shows with Ken Schwartz and Cliff High, NAD is a great supplement to enhance C60's effectiveness, but even on its own, NMN can pass through cell membranes and join with other NMNs to then convert into NAD+, making it much more effective than other NAD supplements on their own. NAD and NMN has been scientifically shown to increase DNA repair in cells. It has also been shown to promote the creation of new mitochondria that can replace our old mitochondria, and it can also increase the removal of damaged mitochondria in our cells. It maintains stem cells' usefulness and ability to regenerate. It also has been shown to reverse age-associated expression of genes involved with inflammation. It does this and a lot more, and it does this at an affordable price of $37.95. Click on the link below to find scientific studies and to learn more about this amazing product. So do all congressmen get access to that, or just ones that they trust?
I think the ones that are trusted.
Yeah, because
so that's probably the ones that are blackmailed and the ones that are in their system that can be controlled. I think those are given these types of benefits.
Now, this is really hard for people to wrap their head around because it's so immoral. It's just so unethical, right? If somebody murders somebody, you can just pay off a bond. I mean, it goes totally against our notion of justice.
Well, okay.
So how did you, we're trying to wrap our head around something and get to the meat of this so that we can go, oh my God, if this is really going on, we have major issues here.
We do. Well, I think that system was created to ironically, to end or curb corruption. So if there are a group of people that are given this ability, this knowledge, and this facility, whether it's a credit card or the ability to write a payment with your signature, I think some people are given this so they can monitor the system. And if someone is wrongly accused and convicted of a crime, like we've seen journalists, right, be convicted of crime they didn't commit. Okay. So those people can be set free by the people that have the power to do this. And there are a certain number of people. Let's just say, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say there's 100 people in the country that have the card, whatever facility to settle these debts, and they can monitor the whole system, and they can get people out of prison that have been wrongly convicted. It's almost like a pardon, but no one knows about it. Now these people, they're tested. They go through a process, and if they use it properly, then they get access. They can do this. If they don't use it properly, the privilege is taken away from them. So there's a system in place for this.
Now, who takes it away from them? Who's in charge of it?
I don't know what function of our government does that. I would have to think it's under the executive branch. I don't know who's doing that.
Okay. And now, would Trump have access to that, or is it even above his pay scale?
I think he would know about it, and I think that's the reason why we're not going to see indictments of any major players, because they will just be settled, and then you couldn't bring it. That would exhaust any claims you can make against these people.
So, why would they allow them to pay off their bonds? Why can't they just say, we're not going to accept you paying this bond off?
I don't know if you can do that. I think Is it just too corrupt?
Our system is so damn corrupt that.
But it's almost like if you're doing what they're doing, they'd be changing something that they have the ability to do, and they don't want to do that. It's what's good for one is good for the other, and they're not going to be able to stop that system. They just have to accept the system the way it is.
And it's just too corrupt right now. And so can we get around that by doing we could do treason type trials.
I don't know that you're going to have a remedy in the court system. I don't even know that you'll have a remedy in the world court. I mean, I don't think you would have a remedy in the world court. As much as I hate to say it, but I think the remedy, if I mean, I don't think we need to do much. I think we need to exclude these people from society, take away their power, take away their money. I think that's enough.
Because that's what they strive for. I've heard from different international people who tell me, a couple people who said that they can't be indicted because of what they got set up. And I've heard that from multiple people, and they just said it, off camera and stuff. And I never got to the meat of why. And we're getting to some of that meat. Now, you were talking about assassination, and this is something that we have to be careful about because I don't want this to be censored. But what does that mean as far as, how can you do that in a way that is, how do people, because leaders of countries are getting assassinated all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's a remedy because the problem with it is the incidents that led up to the cause for that wouldn't be part of history. People wouldn't learn from it. So, okay, you just kill an evil person, and we would all agree the person's evil, and you just killed him. Okay, so what have you done? I mean, the next guy is going to come in and do the same thing.
Well, the point is that we need to remove them. If your back is against the wall, and the only way to remove them is that, then that's better than nothing. But the better way is to remove them in a way that everybody learns from it.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and set an example for the future. I don't think a good example for the future is kill somebody that you think is evil. I mean, we know these people are evil, but we need consensus. How are we going to get consensus to kill somebody unless we go through a judicial system?
Yeah, which we're going to need some kind of. And so now, how do you recommend we do that? Because we have the mass media. We're being censored, and only truthful, trusted sources are going to be allowed. And the trusted sources were just proven to do a fake Russian media. It all came out. There are trusted sources when they just spent 2 years pushing propaganda that was just proven to be BS, and they did that 24/7 and ignored real media, real news stories. And there are trusted sources. So everybody's becoming completely disgusted by the system.
Right.
So what works?
That works. As slow and arduous as it appears, as it is, that's working. Because people that trust CNN no longer would trust CNN. Now, there's still that crowd that's going to trust it. But people are starting to wake up and they're going, wow, after 2 years of investigation, there's no findings. And CNN this whole time, every day has been pounding this.
Yeah,
and now
the official
crap.
Their numbers dropped by 50% the week after that came out.
Okay, well, I think a lot of people are waiting to see what would happen, yeah.
And good, but we need more to wake up. They still aren't, they still are struggling. I think they need structure that they feel safe in. They want a safe structure. And to go the route that we've been going, it doesn't feel safe, really, It's you're venturing out. And I tend to be a venturing out type person. But the majority of people need safety. So, what do we do? And the powers that be know that. Yeah.
They're not safe. They're
worse. They're worse off than us. But yes.
Yeah. They have no idea. They think they're safe, but they have no idea. Oh my gosh.
If they want to be safe, they need to get the hell out of that and start to learn what the real world is.
They got to wake up
to make the steps towards dealing with human trafficking, like with Rothstein. Let's get some of that stuff going. You are not safe in an environment that supports and advertises human trafficking.
We have human trafficking where they take a human being, right, a child per se, let's say, and they bring him out of the country and they make him do whatever, or they sell him or whatever. This is happening. We know that. But everybody who has a social security number and a birth certificate is human trafficked.
And
they're trafficked.
Explain why I'm trafficked.
Because
what specific concrete ways am I being trafficked? Because that's a hard concept to wrap my head around.
Okay, let's call it a person that's created, and it's identified with the SSN, the Social Security number. And when that number is assigned to the person, not the human being, but let's call it the system of records, that's expatriated. That's moved over to the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, inside the United States. That's outside of the state where you were born. So if you have a birth certificate from, let's say, Ohio, well, then you're an Ohio citizen. You're not a U.S. citizen. There's no such thing as a U.S. citizen. But you behave as if you're a U.S. citizen, so that you act as if you're an employee of the United States. That's how they've trafficked you.
And
That's how
they
bond.
force us to pay taxes that from what I understand, this federal income tax is an excess tax that we shouldn't have to be paying. And if you actually read through those documents, that excess tax is not your obligation. And for most people, some people, 6% or something, have some obligation. But the rest of us shouldn't be paying federal income tax.
Yeah, the excise. It's an excise tax, and it's not for people that work. Now, it is. We have. It's for exports, imports. It's for businesses, things like that. But yeah, I mean, they've gotten us to file reports on ourselves under penalty of perjury, and that creates the obligation. As soon as you do that, it's hard to get out of that system.
Now, what happens to people that say, "Okay, I don't want to pay this excise tax anymore"? Do they end up going to prison for tax evasion if they don't do it right?
No. Typically, what happens is people get angry. I've seen people, they're happy to pay and file every year, and then they get angry and they stop. They stop filing. In fact, that was my first client way back in the early 90s, way back in Missouri, and he was a farmer, and he stopped paying because he was angry. And so all they did was want to take his money. They don't care about. They're not going to really indict people unless you're famous, right? They're not going to try to put you in prison. They just want your money. So they went after this guy's farm, and I was assigned the case, and I was learning at that time. So my mentor was helping me. So I went out to his house. I flew out there and stayed there for 3 days, and I went through all his records, and they had taken his whole farm. The IRS levied everything. So we were trying to get it back. So it took about a month, and I had to ask the IRS through the Freedom of Information Act Disclosure Office. I had to ask for his records, his transcripts. And when I got the transcripts, I pulled an IRS manual and it decoded the transcripts. And in there, it showed that he was being taxed for manufacturing surface coal mines. Now,
so
he was a flower farmer.
They make up lies.
They're not, well, yeah, they do. They make up lies, but these lies are under a different branch of different section of the code. It's under Title 27 for taxing alcohol, tobacco products, and firearms. So they had him paying taxes for something he wasn't doing. So in the remedy, ironically, in that case, I actually had to file a report, a one-page report with the FBI.
And then what happened?
In about a month, he got all his property back. And I didn't hear anything after that. I wasn't called as a witness. Nothing happened that I know of. But he got all his property back, and they left.
And they just said, okay, you found out, you got us, we'll drop it. And they move on, and they're silent.
Yeah, they were silent. They did not.
Because if they make a big thing out of it, then people start learning.
That's right. So I didn't know anything at that time. I just thought it was about money, and it wasn't. It's about just taking people's stuff. They just make things up. And so then as I learned more, it just goes further and further. It just never ends. It's like this fraud just never ends.
Oh gosh, I know, because that's what you've devoted your life to, is helping people. Do you have another case that you can share with us where you helped somebody get out of something that again proved to you? I mean, you've been doing this for so long, seeing it's been in your face for so long that you're like, oh, you've got to the point where this is, it's proven to you that it's fraud and it's BS. Give us another example that just woke you up like that.
Well, categories of cases, I mean, mostly small businesses, that really gets me. When I look at a small business being attacked by the IRS, the only thing I can conclude, because I can see it's not even a legitimate collection. Like one example, I'm helping this couple right now. They had a foreign payor. They have customers that are outside the country, and it issued a payment and a 1099, and it didn't put the correct EIN on the 1099. So there's some sort of provision, like a penalty or something like that, but you have time to fix it. You can go remedy it. And actually, disclosing an incorrect SSN or EIN is what's known as a de minimis failure, which means the IRS is supposed to ignore that unless it creates some sort of other problem. So anyways, they were in that situation where the IRS should have ignored it, but instead it triggered an audit. And it triggered an audit for every year for the last 7 years. And they were destroying this business.
And they did it. Now, they were trying to say, they get worried because they think that somebody's trying to use somebody else's EIN or social security number. But did they make the effort to change it themselves and say, oh, we just put the wrong one on? What happened?
No, it wasn't about that. It was about just not having the correct number on the form. It has nothing to do with using someone else's number. And I'll tell you something else too. Look at the SS number, right? And the EIN. It's 9 digits, right? So remember back to high school algebra when you did an algebraic combination. You have you have 10 combinations per digit, right? They're 9 digits. So you have 10 to the ninth power combinations. So for a tax number, any tax number, it's going to be 1 billion combinations. How many people are in the country? A third of a billion alive today. And the system's been going since 1933. So we've exceeded the billion. What about all the trusts in Florida from the older people that come here and they move here and they get trusts for their estates or they get companies? And what about all the businesses that have 9 digit numbers? We've exhausted that billion. We're probably at the 10 billion mark. So your number is being used by somebody else, guaranteed.
So there's two
It's
people.
already 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 people are using your number. I
So
can
that
go in Fidelity and I can show you.
they don't even care then about your number. Well, how do
Here's
they
why.
track it to me? Okay, go ahead.
Here's why. The IRS takes your number and takes the first 4 letters of your last name and appends it to the end of the number. So now you have a number that's 10 to the ninth combinations and 4 to the 26 combination, or 26 to the 4 combinations.
Makes sense. Okay.
It's a huge number. So it'll never be duplicated. So your tax number that's at the IRS in its individual master file is not going to be duplicated. That's unlikely. It's like someone guessing your credit card number.
So they probably could have tracked it down anyways and known that this was a mistake.
Oh yeah. In fact, the IRS is required to notify you and fix it. They should have notified these people. In fact, these people, when they first found out, I think the IRS did tell them, and they fixed it right away. But that didn't stop the IRS from starting this audit, and they were bringing the business down. So I just did what I normally do. I did a reorganization. I changed. I went to all their customers, and
What does their business do that the IRS, or they just want money?
it was
'Cause
nothing
some-
special except
'cause-
that they were like, I would call them like sitting ducks, because they're not a big business that has resources that could pay a law firm to fight the IRS. It's just a mom and pop. It literally was a mom and pop.
Yeah, because the
And that's
IRS just destroys companies because they
Yeah.
help get rid of competition for the bigger players.
That's what they do. That's exactly. It's a shame, but they do that. So I just reroute all the cash flow. I restructure the company. I use a different company or whatever. I let the company the IRS is destroying get destroyed. The IRS sees it's destroyed and moves on. When the IRS moves on, I then do an offer and compromise based on doubt as to collectability. And I make the client look poor forever, and then he builds up his net worth in the company that I set up for him. And it's a new system. It's a new way of doing things.
So the IRS knows that they're a thriving small business, and they know that they are the ones that destroyed it, and they don't care. They just move on to the next one.
Yeah, it's almost like they want to attack people that are successful, and that is who it is. People that are successful. And I've seen state agencies do this too. Department of Health, they do this for spa clinics, IRS, small businesses. It doesn't matter what business you're in.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is our problem. So there are good people in the system that try not to do that, because I've run into some of them personally. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I've also seen, and I've seen a lot. And my mother, who does tax, she's seen some stuff too. Now, let's get back to the indictment situation. How can people learn that these criminals, treasonous, horrible people, how can they learn on their own and vet what you're saying, that these assholes, for lack of a better word, there's no word to describe how evil these
Right.
people are, that they will get off, and there's nothing we can do from that standpoint?
Well, assuming what I'm saying is correct, that is, everything comes down to whether or not an indictment would stick. So if an indictment would not stick if the bonds could be paid off. So if you want to check out and see how case numbers are bonded, you can go look in your court system. You can go look in Dun& Bradstreet. You can find that your court is actually a business. So it's selling securities. A lot of the people I talk with, they look on Fidelity. It's a trading house, and you can see all the exchanges. You just look it up by you can go and pick any case file at your courthouse, go look up the universal case identifier. The case number is just part of that, okay? So you want to ask the clerk, and they're sometimes going to be reluctant to tell you. So you want the universal case identifier, go on Fidelity. You can do this for free, I think, and search for that number and find the securities that are attached to that. You can also do this for your Social Security number. You can also get on your loan instruments, if you can get this from your lender, ask for the CUSIP number, CUSIP, the CUSIP number that was assigned. This is assigned every time you do an application for anything, a job application, a credit application, whatever.
Now, what do we do to now we're sitting and now we're going to move to solution mode. We start to learn that, oh my God, this is true. Now, what do we do? What do you suggest for solutions? The educational part is absolutely critical, but to create something that is worth being part of, that we all are like, want to be part of, what are some of these solutions? And I know you've sat and thought about it for a long time.
Well, I want to not participate. I want to live my life and be productive and have a healthy family, and I want to teach my children the right way. And I want to ignore these criminals as much as I can. They're in my face, but I want to ignore them as much as I can. That's really the important thing, because when I talk to a lot of people, they're so consumed by this that they can't live their lives. And I say, gosh, you got to live your life first. You got to have a plan. What are you doing next year? What are you investing in? What clubs are you involved in? Get in, do those things. Build your life. Take care of your health. And yeah, okay. Now how do we deal with these people? Just stop participating.
Well, first, we don't let them destroy us personally. So let's take care of our families. Let's take care of our health. Let's do the things we need to be healthy individuals. Because the last thing we should give these a-holes is our own health and sanity. So take care of yourself and your children.
Right.
And then past that, what can we do to move on and say, we are not going to support this activity?
Okay, there's two things, pretty big things, and maybe we could do an additional discussion because it's quite lengthy. But one thing I'm working on right now is I'm putting together a little structure known as a private membership association. It's a business structure. You can use it for your family or a business. And I'll tell you real quick, the way this works is a family is already a private membership association. So people have not heard this, and you're not going to hear this from an attorney. But a private membership association is a legal structure that identifies a group that has something in common. So a family, of course, has something in common. The reason why Child Protective Services is able to get children is because they're breaking into this private membership association on a presumption that there's something substantively evil going on. But because the parents don't understand what they're doing, they don't know how to defend it. So they're talking about what the court or the judges and the CPS people want to talk about, but they're not talking about the fact that there's nothing substantively evil going on in the family. And the court just acts on that presumption, and then all disaster happens, right? So once people start understanding that their family is already a private membership association, I'll give an example. A friend of mine calls me from Atlanta. They come over to his office. He just gets a lease for the first week. The city's already over there saying, you have to pay us this tax, which is like $150 or something. He had another 2 weeks to pay it. He just hadn't gotten around to doing it. And they said, no, you have to pay it now. I mean, they were like thugs. So he called me on the phone. I did some research, and I found out that if we restructure his business and his lease agreement and use a private membership association, and we put that on the door, put the name of his company and then put private membership association underneath, they will leave him alone because it's outside the purview, because it doesn't have to do with the public interest. So the state taxing authorities, the cities, and the whomever can't come in and tell you what to do unless you're starting a campfire in the middle of your office or your house or something, right?
Unless you're creating danger for others around you.
Exactly. So but you have to use a private membership association. There are articles you have to write up. There are certain things you want to put in there, and you don't have to publish it. You don't register it with the state. I recommend publishing the name of it, though, in a legal notice journal, like a local business paper or something like that. So that's one thing you can do. When I say not participate, this is a tool where you can not participate and you can do your same things you like doing.
Well, what happens about a child that truly is being abused? Sexually abused in a family, and there truly is evil stuff going on. So they can still breach that if it truly is something evil going on.
It is a police power, yes.
Okay,
and they will.
That's good. Absolutely. We want that, but
I want that too. Yep.
Yeah, but we don't want them going in and taking your kid from which they do. They take it from single mothers and people who are quite defenseless, and they're taking these children to be trafficked.
We had that situation come up here in Florida. We were at a private school way back 10 years ago, and our pediatrician had my son had little bumps on his skin, and the pediatrician told us to put duct tape on it. So before he went to school, we put the duct tape on there, and it was dissolving the bumps, and it cured it. But in the meantime, he was scratching it. Now, he was 3 years old, and there was a sub teacher in his class that day, and the sub is just, they're so overreactive, and they're so scared of having any liability. So the sub told the director of the school. The director of the school called Child Protective Services. They came out to the school and took all my children, all three, out of the class and photographed them and made them take their clothes off and all this crazy stuff. Like that's even worse than anything, right? So they didn't tell me that they were doing this. And I found out later and I interviewed my children and then they told me after school and I was so angry. And I went and I I went and I filed a claim against all my children. And I went to the school and I explained, you know, I'm gonna prosecute this claim if you don't leave my children alone and leave my family alone. There's no wrongdoing here. It was for $28 million. And they backed off. And they said, we're so sorry. And I did some research and I found out that only 5% of the cases of the referrals are anything worth investigating. 5%. And they knew that. And I think that was enough. I think that the fact that I was going to oppose them was enough. I didn't go in there and beg for mercy. I just said, hey, look, you don't have the right to do these things. And if you proceed, it's going to cost you $28 million. And this resulted in the school, both locations being shut down. I didn't intend for that to happen, but this shut down the school. They had to leave and go back to California.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, there are situations I know in our state where kids have been referred to Child Protective Services 16 times and they never check into them, and the kids have been killed, you know. And so we have twofold problems. It's just incompetency all around is what it is. Incompetency and
there was
corruption.
Incompetence. I mean, it was so obvious. That's why. And that's why I was angry, because it was clearly incompetence. And if there was any question that I had done something wrong, like beat them or something, then, you know, I'm probably gonna get an attorney, right? You know, and try to make a deal with them or something.
Well, but also they didn't find any bruises. It was just some bumps underneath. And then all you had to do is explain. My doctor told, what the hell are you doing? Yeah.
And why didn't they call me first? And see, that's the policy. The policy is don't call the parents, call the police first.
Jeez. But what did they find? Why would the duct tape on a kid's thing even trigger
He was scratching it. And then the teacher asked what the problem was, and he showed his skin. It was on his stomach. And then she got scared because she saw duct tape, you know, silver tape on the skin. So she thought that was something like we were crazy or something. Instead of calling us and saying, hey, what's going on with your kid? They couldn't just call us. So then we left that school and then we went to another school. That was I mean, and then the next school, I actually had a separate contract than the service agreement. I made them sign a different contract that said, look, if you get a situation like this, call me first. And they agreed to it. It was a good school. But now I homeschool them. I'm not even going to get into that. That's another way of not participating is if you can do it, homeschool.
Well,
if you can do it.
If you can do it. And that's the problem. I'm not sure if I could do it. You know, and do it. I mean, it's not that I'm not smart enough. I just don't know if I'm disciplined enough to make sure my kids are up. My daughter's, she's the youngest and she's graduating this year from high school. But I just don't know if I would have had the ability to do it.
Well, I don't have the ability. I do homeschool and I don't have the ability. Here's how I supplement it. Because I wanted,
at least you're honest.
To do it. Yeah, I want to do it. So I'm at least halfway there, right? It's like when I was in high school. I hated high school and I barely got through it. And I thought, and I showed up every day though. I didn't like it, but I sat in the front and center in every class. I figured if I do that much, at least the teacher's going to remember my face and I'll try to smile and maybe I'll get a better grade if I shouldn't get a better grade, right? So what I do is I supplement it with courses on the internet, and I can connect with other parents that are homeschooling, and I can get curriculum.
Homeschooling groups and stuff.
Oh yeah,
right?
That saves me. Without that, forget it. I can't do it. So, and my wife helps me, and then she's learned a lot. We learn how to communicate with them and what books to get, and so there is a way to.
Can't you co-op and say, okay, I'm good at this subject, you guys are good at this subject, so you teach this and I teach this? And
absolutely. In your neighborhood, you'd be surprised if you talk to your neighbors. We don't talk to our neighbors too much anymore, and there's that. Plus my daughter's 17, she's pretty much graduated now, and now she's way better at chemistry and algebra than I am. So she's now working with my younger ones, so I can kind of step back and say, could you please show them how to do, so there are resources. You don't have to be the expert and know everything. Yeah.
Well, how can people get hold of you? Because I know what else do you do for people? Because I know you do these kind of services for people to help them get restructured and safe. You make their life safe, their assets safe. Give us a spiel on what you do and how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Well, I lately have been working with a lot of people around the States and Canada and the UK to set up different structures to deal with cryptographic currency. That seems to be the hottest thing right now. So I've set up some new things for the Canadians and for the people in the UK and also in the States. So we do things where people can use cryptos and not have a big tax consequence when they take a nice windfall. So that's a little thing I do. And also we have that crypto manager, a little computer. It doesn't have a monitor, right? And people can trade their cryptos on it, and it works as a cold storage device. They can put it in their vault. And they can you can see more information if you go to aceofcoins.com.
Oh, excellent. Okay, will you stick around for my Patreons?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much for
Thank you, Sarah.